Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to dive deep into something I think we all can relate to. Ever find yourself in a discussion and you just can't quite get your point across? Or maybe you're prepping for a big debate and need to sharpen those skills right.
Or maybe you're just someone who loves a good argument and who wants to get better at winning them.
Yeah, that too. Well, today's deep dive is all about giving you the tools and the tactics to make your argument stand out and really make an impact. We're cracking open English for debates, arguing your point. And let me tell you, this book is way more interesting than it sounds.
Yeah, the title makes it sound like a dry textbook, but it's actually full of super practical tips and phrases you can use right away, not just in formal debates, but in everyday life too.
Right, and that's what's so cool about this is like we all debate in some way, right? Whether it's with friends, family, even at work when you're trying to get your ideas heard.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. Those everyday conversations, they're like mini debates in a way, right?
Totally. Okay, so the book kicks off by explaining like what actually makes a good argument. And, it might sound obvious, but I think it's worth repeating.
Oh yeah, lay it on us.
It's not enough to just state your opinion, right?
Right.
You got to back it up with evidence and logic. It's like, okay, imagine you're building a house. You need that solid foundation to support the whole structure.
That's a great analogy. And just like a house needs walls and a roof, a good argument needs more than just facts, right?
Right.
It needs that clear connection between your evidence and your main point. And what's cool is this book actually gives you specific phrases to help you do just that. Like instead of just saying, research shows this,
Right.
you could say, the research clearly demonstrates this, which directly supports the idea that. You see, that little tweak in phrasing, it makes your argument way more powerful.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah, because it's not just about what you say, but it's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
And this book is packed with these little, I guess you could call them communication hacks.
Yeah, like little ninja moves for your arguments.
Yeah. Like when you're disagreeing with someone,
Right.
right? Instead of just saying, no, you're wrong, which, let's be honest, nobody likes to hear.
Right.
You could try something like, I understand where you're coming from, but I think it's also important to consider this.
It's like you're acknowledging their point of view, which keeps things, respectful and less confrontational. But at the same time, you're still getting your own ideas across, clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book actually calls this respectful disagreement. And honestly, this was a huge takeaway for me
Oh, me too. Yeah.
because it's not just about being polite. It's also a strategy.
Oh, yeah, totally. Because when you show respect for the other person's perspective, even if you completely disagree with it, you're way more likely to keep that conversation open and maybe even persuade them to see things your way.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So it's not about like crushing your opponent. It's more about, how do they put it? Yeah, it's about moving the conversation forward in a way that actually, leads to somewhere.
Exactly. Finding some sort of common ground or at least understanding each other better,
Yeah. And another thing that really struck me was the emphasis on active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll admit, sometimes I'm so focused on my own argument that I forget to actually listen to what the other person is saying,
Oh, for sure. We've all been there, right? Like
Yeah.
you're so busy formulating your next brilliant rebuttal that you miss crucial points are raised.
Exactly. But the book, it really stresses the importance of like actually tuning in and hearing what the other side is saying.
And not just hearing the words, but trying to really grasp their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. It's like you're trying to get inside their head and understand where they're coming from. Because once you do that, you can tailor your arguments to address their specific concerns, which makes you much more persuasive.
And I think that ties in with what they said about paying attention to body language and tone of voice. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes what someone says and how they say it are two totally different things, right?
Totally. It's like you're becoming a communication detective, picking up on those nonverbal cues that can give you a whole other layer of understanding.
It's like a secret weapon for communication, right? And it's not just for debates. I mean, think about it in a job interview, a presentation, even just chatting with a friend.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Being able to read those subtle cues, that can give you a huge advantage.
Absolutely. So to sum things up, it seems like the key takeaway here is that being a good debater, or even just a good communicator, it's about way more than just speaking eloquently. It's about listening, understanding, and building your arguments carefully with, logic and evidence.
And not being afraid to, disagree respectfully, of course, because that's how you keep the conversation going and open up the possibility of actually changing someone's mind, or at least, helping them see things from a new perspective.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the most valuable thing we can take away from this deep dive. So what do you think? How can you use these principles not just to win arguments, but to actually have more meaningful, more productive conversations in your daily life? Where you're not just talking at each other, but actually listening and learning from each other.
That's a great question, and one I hope our listeners will keep pondering. It's something I'm going to keep in mind, too.
Yeah, me too. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.